It's 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock. Curfew. Curfew. All residents of Santa Mira, please clear the street. Curfew is now in effect. Please confine your activities to your own home. Thank you. Have a very pleasant evening.
This is the Rebel Call Channel. Welcome to today's show. Curfew, curfew, curfew. Everybody remembers that we had a long run of curfews in effect a few years ago, and they don't realize that the long-term plan for all of us, which involves a carbon footprint, also involves a curfew. They are conditioning people into being not just prepared for curfew, but into accepting curfews. And one of the ways they're doing that, of course, with problem, reaction, solution, is in a lot of these cities letting violence run rampant. This is why I continually use the word sabotage. When the government's sabotaging the current way of life that we all have by allowing criminals to run amok, by even paying off criminals, by even putting in CIA operatives dressed up as criminals, what this does is it makes civilians fed up with the way things are going. So the police come in and they say, look, we'll figure this problem out for you. People are having problems with crime running amok. People are now having problems with, us allowing squatters to have more rights than people who own the property. Well, we'll bring about curfews and we'll bring about more justice and law that way. I talked on the website about during the spring break in Florida, it was massive conditioning for conservatives. All the conservatives looked at everything that happened during spring break and they loved it. They said, keep outsiders out, keep these people who are, going to bring chaos out. And of course, what did that mean? Well, during spring break measures in Florida, they had bag checks, DUI checks, license plate readers, restricted beach access, parking garage closures, heightened police presence. They closed liquor stores at 8. They were towing cars that were parked after a certain time. There was no sidewalk seating. There was curfew, and everybody saw it and loved it. And now what we're seeing around the United States of America is a lot of cities. We see it in Arkansas. We see it in Indianapolis. It's spreading. The police are coming in because of violence in their cities, and they're bringing about curfews. And they want you to look at this as a good thing. But really what they're doing is conditioning you into a long-term accepting of curfews. It's going to be part of a new way of life. Once people become desensitized to this, once this starts happening over and over and over again, and then they start pumping you propaganda about crime rates being down, about everybody feeling safer, everybody will comply and accept it. Take a look at the curfews that are being put in place around the United States of America.
Our big story tonight, a state of emergency has been issued in Marianna, Arkansas. City leaders will tell you it's an indication of just how serious the gun violence problem is in their hometown. Thanks for joining us for this early edition of News Channel 3 at 6. I'm Greg Hurst.
And I'm Shay Simon. Stephanie is off tonight. WREG's Ashley Paul joins us now live outside the Marianna Police Department. Ashley, what exactly led to this?
Community members here in Marianna learned of the upcoming curfew on a Facebook post today, letting them know that between 8 p.m. tonight and 6 a.m. tomorrow, and again on Saturday night into Sunday morning, they are not allowed to leave the house. Now, according to that notice, it reads in part, quote, "This decision was not made lightly, but is essential to ensure the safety and security of all residents of Marianna," end quote. We spoke with Police Chief Rodney Perry, who says the city has seen an uptick in crime, specifically amongst young people, and this is their way of trying to get ahead of it. He says this will give police the authority to pull people over who are out past curfew to try and determine who the troublemakers are.
So tonight, IMPD is now enforcing the city's curfew. This after 7 young people were shot downtown over the last weekend. This is what the scene looked like at Maryland and Illinois last weekend after police say a fight led to that shooting. Police say 6 of the people who were injured in the shooting were between the ages of 14 and 16. One of them was a 12-year-old boy. Tonight, our Chase Howell talked to police about how both the kids and now their parents could face consequences if they're caught out after curfew.
That's right, and people can't say they didn't know about the curfew either, because IMPD says they're going to warn groups of kids 30 and 15 minutes before curfew is set to begin.
It's a scene police are hoping to never see again.
It is our duty as parents, as adults, and as law enforcement to keep our children safe, alive, out of jail, and out of the cemetery.
IMPD says last weekend's shooting downtown that sent 7 kids between 12 and 16 years old to the hospital caused them to start enforcing the city's curfew. According to that ordinance, 15 to 17-year-olds cannot be out between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday without some sort of supervision. For those 14 years old and younger, their curfew starts at 11 p.m. and ends at 5 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday, again without supervision. And if a minor is caught disobeying the ordinance, a number of things could happen.
This may involve bringing the juvenile to a designated safe and secure location. At that time, officers will make attempts to notify a parent, guardian, or custodian of that child. Parents and guardians will be granted a reasonable amount of time to pick up their child. If contact with parents or guardians cannot be established, the juvenile will be transported to the Juvenile Detention Center for a status offense.
IMPD says people can expect to see more officers in and out of uniform patrolling downtown.
Analysts in the Real-Time Crime Center will monitor city cameras and will use other technology to identify individuals engaging in disorderly and criminal behavior.
And if a minor is caught in either types of those situations, their parent or guardian could also face consequences.
There is potential for criminal charges for someone who knowingly allows their kids to be somewhere they're not supposed to be and something terrible happens. So, but each incident has its own set of circumstances. There's no black and white answer to any of that. There's a lot of gray.
Now, for those wondering what the curfew is, Sunday night through Thursday night, the ordinance states that anyone under 17 should not be out past 11 p.m. Reporting in Indianapolis, Chase Howell, 13 News.
Okay, so this is all conditioning for it. The longer we allow, the first step is allowing it. The first step is going, oh, okay, well, there's so many problems going on, I guess a curfew is needed. Instead of people realizing that all of a sudden crime rates and these things are happening because the government is doing it. The government is using intel agencies to pretty much use employees of the intel agencies to hire out criminals, to let them out of prison, to let them run amok. They're being told they could run amok. We know that they're obviously using propaganda in the media to also brainwash people out there into thinking, hey, you know, the more they see it, it's monkey see, monkey do. So teenagers out there are seeing, you know, all these videos of kids running into Nordstrom's, robbing stores and getting away with it. So, of course, that's how mind control works. They see it, and then they reenact it. And they're going, hey, you know, these people aren't getting arrested. And they're going, well, now I guess I could go rob and do all these things too. So there's dual forms of mind control going on. But at the same time, they're conditioning everybody else out there into thinking that curfews are the resolution to the problem, right? But really, it's problem, reaction, solution, because they want you to want curfews enforced. This is a clip I used over on the website during the Miami Beach spring break. And the mayor talking about how everybody loves the curfew, how the curfew is, oh, the crimes are down, and police checking your bags as you enter the beach. All these things have really helped with safety measures. And everybody out there is being duped into this. Again, all because the government is sabotaging our infrastructure and allowing crime to run amok. Listen to this clip from spring break in Miami.
Eric, thank you. Joining us now, the mayor of Miami Beach, Stephen Minor. Mayor Minor, thanks for being here. First of all, I want to jump in and ask you, do you agree with the spring break curfew for this year?
Number of years we've had shootings on our street, and we're a safe city, and these measures were necessary to keep everyone safe. By the way, a lot of the businesses are happy that we put in these measures. It's a handful of businesses that are impacted, but many businesses are saying they're actually making more money this year than in past years.
Well, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you that, you know, what do you hear or are hearing from the business owners, the clubs, the restaurants, the shops who make the bulk of their revenue during spring break? So you're just saying to me that, because as you well know, there were several businesses, the Mint, I believe, is one of them, the nightclub that stays open, I believe, from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m., who said, listen, this is hurting our bottom line here.
Well, first of all, our residents are extremely pleased that we put in the measures that we have this year. This is the calmest spring break we've had in years. And in the businesses, it's a little more mixed. Yes, we had 3 businesses that brought suit, and those businesses are open till 5 a.m., which they can't do for the next, it's really just 2 weekends that they can't do that. But again, a number of restaurants that make their business like a traditional restaurant are actually telling me thank you that these measures have helped them. It's kept things safer, calmer, and that they're actually busier.
Well, security has been the issue, and you've implemented spring break security measures like bag checks, heightened police presence, closing parking garages. What more can you and other city and state officials do to fortify law enforcement during spring break, or do you feel like you've done all you can do?
We took the most robust measures we've ever taken by a long shot. License plate readers, DUI checks, bag checks, closing the beach at 6 p.m., closing our parking garages just for these 2 weekends, and the heaviest law enforcement presence we've ever had between our Miami Beach Police, the county, sister cities, and also the governor and Florida Highway Patrol. They really came through. They gave us 45 officers last weekend and this weekend. It's really helped. You could see the difference on the street. It's calmer. We're busy. We're still a busy city. I was out there last night with police and everyone, and we're busy, but everything is calm. Everyone's having a great time the way it should be.
Does Miami Beach risk losing businesses and the reputation as a go-to spring break destination?
Well, I don't know if we ever wanted to be the go-to spring break destination. We want to be a tourist attraction, which we are. We want our hotels filled, which they are. And actually, I think the opposite was happening. We were risking ruining our reputation by having these acts of violence, which we've prevented this year. So this is a win-win for everyone, and this is actually a huge success for us this year.
And I know the residents are very concerned about safety as well. Are most college students showing up for spring break, can you tell, or other people showing up for the party?
A little bit of a mix. The problems we've had in past years really haven't been college students. It's been people in their mid, late 20s, 30s who are kind of using the attraction to come here and cause problems. That's been the issue. So that's why spring break might not even be the correct terminology. But the bottom line is the formula is the same. We put in these measures to keep people safe. Our residents were demanding it. Many of our businesses were demanding it. And other than, like you said, a couple of businesses that brought this lawsuit and lost, really, almost uniformly, everyone in our city is appreciative of the drastic actions we've taken, which have worked.
So again, does that sound like something that's appealing to you? Well, of course, on paper, if you just heard that suddenly the police, without anything going on, if you were just living your day-to-day life and the police were like, we're going to put in a curfew, everybody would be like, no, you're not. Who's saying you're putting in a curfew? So obviously they're creating this problem, and they're obviously gaslighting people all over the place into thinking that criminals are everywhere, and they are. There's crime all over the place, but this is done by design. The cops have been told to stand down. This is important to note because conservatives are getting duped into loving police. Trump is aligning himself with the police. One of my first videos I've ever put up on YouTube was about the police fraternal order, which is run and controlled by Freemasons. They all are initiated in Freemasonry when they go through these secret training operations that they do. Not just, the training to become a policeman, but they actually have to join a fraternal order, the fraternal order of the police. So the police are all in their pockets too. Okay, so all this stuff that the police are doing is by design. When the police are allowing themselves to be berated in the media, this is them bowing down because they're told to bow down. This is the police not showing up to go after a lot of these criminals because they're told not to. They're told to stand down. And they know exactly what's going on because they're in the brotherhood, right? It's no different than when I talked about the Me Too movement with Matt Lauer and all these guys who were getting accused of this stuff. And then all conservatives like, yeah, go after him, go after him. They were deliberately doing it. They were deliberately allowing themselves to lose their jobs and all these things to push forward the agenda. And the police are doing the same thing. So now the police are the ones aligned with the conservatives while the Dems are being aligned more with the smart city technology that they're going to go about with the smart cities. These are going to be the two opposite, structures in the government when we do this split. There's going to be a police state versus a smart city AI governed state, right? This is how both sides are going to look. So we're seeing people okay with curfews put in place. Like, I remember hearing stories of curfews in place, like if there was a serial killer running amok, and they'd be like, hey, until for the next couple of days, everybody should stay inside at night because this person's lurking in the night and the police will be on the street. And even then I was like, geez, all right, I guess, when you hear some of these stories, you're like, all right, I guess it makes sense. I mean, who would even want to go out if that was really going on out in the streets? Well, think of it this way. Now all they're doing is they're creating these stories by sending criminals out onto the streets to create these things and do these things so that they could come in and tell you that a curfew needs to be in place. And everybody's going, yeah, I agree. I mean, we got to stop this one way or the other. I don't feel safe. And they don't feel safe because they're watching the news. If the news wasn't on and the news was completely just blown off the face of the earth, nobody would even know a lot of this stuff was occurring. Okay, unless you were in cities and you saw a lot of the homeless stuff that's going on. Other than that, you wouldn't know this is going on unless you had a television or you had some form of media to tell you about it, which is what they're doing. They're blasting it on TikTok, blasting it on Facebook, blasting it on YouTube. They're blasting it everywhere to make people fearful that, oh my gosh, the infrastructure's falling apart. We need to do more about it. And here's the solution that they've wanted all along, curfew. And we know that's what they've wanted all along. Because again, part of prison rules, carbon footprint rules, is to have curfews in place. And we just had curfews in place a few years ago. And everybody was complaining about the curfews then. People were like, this is ridiculous. Now all the stores close at 5 o'clock. Oh, we got to be in home by 8. Nobody liked it, but they were getting conditioned. Now here's the next phase of the conditioning. People are willingly going, you know what? If it's going to make everybody safe, then fine. Fine. We're siding with the police now. We're siding with the police because, of course, the Dems have sided themselves against the police. So conservatives, by default, are aligning themselves with the police because they feel like the police are one with them, and they hate the Dems so much that they're all pro-police all of a sudden. Okay, and now they're all pro-police state. So Indianapolis and Arkansas are just a few of the states that are now implementing these types of curfews. We have to keep an eye on these types of stories because it's going to spread, right? Age groups. This is what we're starting with, age groups. And keep in mind, one of the clips that I played for you from the news in Indianapolis talked about if a parent willingly lets their child out, they're also going to be held liable. So say a 50-year-old parent lets their 14-year-old go to their neighbor's house and they get caught, guess what? The parent is going to go to jail and face criminal charges. That's how insane this is getting. And that's another thing that we have to all keep an eye on that I'll cover in more detail for anyone out there that's interested, is these stories about violence with those things that go bang, bang, bang. And how recently a lot of these false flag school events that have occurred, the parents of the actual person responsible for the shooting, which of course is all done by design, are actually getting put on trial and taken to prison for allowing or possessing those weapons in their home. So these are all things, guilty by association type of stuff they're going to put in place. Again, removing the parents' control over the children inside of their home is ultimately one of the things that's going to occur here with global communism. Okay? The children, that's why a lot of the stuff you see going on with the trans rights and children deciding their gender, and if parents refuse it, the parents get arrested or the kid gets removed from the home. This ultimately is about the state controlling the children. That's how communism works. The state is in control, not the parent, the state. So the state raises your child, the state has the rights over your child, and if your child at 3 years old wants to castrate himself, the child has every right to do so, and the parents will be removed from the picture. So important stories to keep an eye on because the longer that this stuff goes on, the more desensitized people become to it. And eventually this just becomes the new norm. This is how desensitizing works, right? People will hear me talking about this a bit. He's out of his mind. That's never going to happen. In 5 years, when all of a sudden every state has a curfew in place, people won't look back at somebody like me and say, oh man, that guy was warning about it. This is crazy. They're just going to go along with it and still think that people like us are conspiracy theorists and say, this is the new norm. This is a good thing. This is an acceptable thing, because the longer time goes, the more accepting you become of it, and the more propaganda that surrounds it, the more you accept this as a new way of life. Curfews. In other words, global imprisonment. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.